Really, the NFTs, I look at it more as an art medium, right? And it's just the early stage. So right now we're minting a 2D asset, right, onto SuperRare, and that's how it's bought and sold and appreciated as a picture or a video. I created Mars House at the height of the COVID lockdowns last April. And I began to really daydream about my dream home. And I was like, okay, let's build this. But, Mars House and the project that I created was really a sneak peek into the future of NFTs, the next generation, which will become 3D digital programmable assets in augmented reality. I always envisioned experiencing this house in VR, right? And so that was my goal, is to create this incredible immersive experience, my dream home, but that's meditative design, right? A house that heals through my art. And then of course the next step, the ultimate step, is to build Mars House physically. Physical, digital, that whole interplay, very interesting, because that is basically going to be our reality very soon, and it is.
How it was from your side to basically, sold it for $500,000. How do you think, what it actually means?
The price tag is warranted because it is a historical piece, quite frankly. But really, for me, that money is not, we're not pocketing that money. That money is going toward the Continuum Foundation, which is actually financing a world tour of healing sound and light meditative installations around the world. And we're starting in Toronto, August the 20th to the 22nd. We're going to produce a giant LED wall in the middle of Fort York Museum, and we're going to have the biggest mass meditative art installation in the world. We're going to bring thousands of people together from the community, from the indigenous community, from all communities, all together to learn meditation and to heal. Mental health is probably one of the greatest issues that everyone's paying attention to right now. So that money is going to a social cause. NFTs can actually be a vehicle for positive social change around the world, because now we have collectors who have capital that can invest in the ideas and initiatives for the community that are led by artists. So Mars House is one example where the collector art on internet, we had a conversation before we closed the sale, actually. And I said, you know what? I just want to let you know that, the money that's invested in the Mars House is going to a cause that's going to change and shift the world in a positive way. Done deal. And you know what? That's the way we should move forward, because in history, in art history, 50% of the sale of an artwork goes to an intermediary. Now you can think about all the billions of dollars that are transacted in art and how much money goes into the intermediary section. But the problem is that really limits the artist's ability to bring back art and beauty into the community. But now we are fully financed and have the power to actually get into the community and create change, real change through the art, because art and ideas change the world. And it's a powerful thing when you have the artist and the collector join forces and have powerful initiatives to do just that. And then the community thrives, the community heals. We need more of that, because art heals around the world. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing right now.
The general topic of mental health in this industry is very high, and I think you basically understand really well of how art could help. So I'm curious, what do you think about mental health in art space as a whole, and how art could actually be the remedy?
It's a call to action for higher ideals. That's what art does, if it's properly doing its job. If you're looking at my practice individually, my art is all about meditation, and I suffer from mental illness as just like everybody else. I'm a human being. Everybody has trauma. Everybody has, life is hard. Life is full of suffering. But in order to cope, I learned transcendental meditation, and that was in 2013. And I was going through depression. I was going through anxiety. I learned this method, and I haven't stopped doing it. In fact, I do it twice a day, every day since that day that I learned in 2013. as an artist, it actually strengthened my intuition, and intuition is the superpower of all artists. And of course, I have to say that Mars House and all of my artistic decisions have come from my practice, right, as a meditator. And I want to create a Zen garden. And when I lived in Tokyo, it's a crazy city, right? It's amazing. But then you walk around the city and then you find little Zen gardens in the city. You enter the Zen garden and it's designed to actually mirror a state of Zen in the viewer, because the way that it's curated, the way that it's composed, there's a lot of empty space in between the plants and in between the stones and the rocks. And that's because the Zen monks knew that by creating the empty space, that actually mirrors into the mind of the viewer and creates a Zen state of consciousness. So what I want to create through technology, and I want to show the world, is that technology should be used for the purpose of well-being and humanity. And that should be a paradigm shift going forward. So through the art that I'm creating, with the screens, using the screens as a mode of healing, as a Zen state of consciousness, the colors actually have a physiological response to color and light. Use the medium to heal with sound, right? And if you have that in combination, very powerful. And that's the tour. I'm using giant screens to heal the world, because people are used to seeing screens as a way to, exploit them. It's manipulation. It's, data pollution, right? So the Zen garden, that's my art. I think as an artist, if you're not there, like mentally and emotionally, your art also, is still in a work in progress, right? It's when you actually know who you are and you have mental health and stability that you create the best work. So while I was meditating, it came to me, light. Light is the new ink. So when I look at the screen, you usually see pictures and, messages, but I take all that away and I want to create just color and frequency. How can you use the screen visually to induce a state of altered consciousness, like Zen? So very minimalist, working with emptiness, like a Zen garden, how I mentioned, the empty space, the dark matter. I wanted to see the piece behind me. There's a lot of empty space in that piece. That's because I want that empty space to also reflect in your mind. You have a moment of pure consciousness. And we need that in the digital age, where we are bombarded with thousands of messages a day. I think that before COVID, people were just running turbo fast, but COVID shut everything down. And now we have time to think. Mars House now is sort of like Kyoto. When I was in Kyoto, the architecture, I love Japanese Zen architecture. And I thought, okay, if you want to create a civilization that is mindful, that understands digital Zen, then you must create the architecture. You must create the fashion. You must create every visual asset that you see as a Zen, experience, the way that Kyoto has successfully done. And if you go there, you feel Zen, because the fashion, the food, every aspect of their culture is expressed with Zen and the beauty of Zen. And so I wanted to create that same idea that we're creating a civilization, and for me it would be one of digital Zen. Art actually takes people into a mode of positivity, because we need an escape sometimes from the negativity of our lives. We need hope, we need inspiration, something to aspire to, and then we achieve it. And that's what art does. That's how we change the world.
I think specifically with the Mars House is just really good next step of how spread the awareness about basically, taking your time and actually be able to, kind of get away from maybe problems you have, or potentially the social networks and everything else that currently still exists in the digital world and pretty damaging, and just take your time and actually, enjoy the something that doesn't design to basically take something from you?
You know, I keep saying that the NFT is the supreme art medium, because what it does is it carries our creative energy and our ideas into infinity, right? So even with the human race is gone, and an alien race has records of what we have created and is influenced by our ideas. And the most powerful thing that you can introduce into the world is a good idea. Is a good idea that changes the world. And the beauty of the NFT is it's decentralized. No one can control or censor those ideas. Those ideas are in the public record for good. So I think that it's a major responsibility for artists to create value for the world, for your fellow man. And that's our role in life. That's what an artist does. You know, we create beauty and value for the people, for our humanity. We shift culture. We make it better. And, you know, we have to also take from history, from the great philosophers and the great artists of the past, carry it on and into the future and into the NFT to make it immutable and for infinity, a record of human civilization that goes into the cosmos.